What is up? Welcome to No Punt Intended. No Joe Zolo this week, and we're a day early for probably one of the first times of this show. We've been late before, trust me, but we've never been early. It's just going to be me and Josh here to help get you guys through the fantasy championship. We appreciate you guys tuning in on Christmas Eve. We know it's a big day tomorrow. There's already 2 NFL games, so time is of the essence. Let's win you a championship. Let's get into the Week 17 version of No Punt Intended. What is up? Welcome to No Punt Intended, presented by Club Fantasy. I am your host, Ryan Weisse. With me, as always, the Grinch himself, Joshua Hudson. Merry Christmas Eve, my friend. How you doing tonight?
Look, just like the Grinch, who hates people, not really Christmas, I'm going to hate on fantasy players, not Christmas.
I say. And Josh hates Christmas, just not people. No. Caesar hitting us with the Christmas tree emoji right off the rip.
There you go.
You guys get to see my tree for 2 or 3 shows every year. Friendly reminder, folks, this will be the last time Club Fantasy is on air until Saturday. So if you guys have questions, get those in. We're going to be more than happy to answer those tonight. You just got done seeing Josh and I not 9 hours ago. We are here to hold you down for the flagship show, No Pun Intended. Joe is spending time with family, and we are A-okay with that. He has some picks, and we have some ways to make fun of those picks. But before we get into it, Josh, I think we need to cover, well, I was going to say news and notes, but you know what? First, let's pay some bills. Guys, the season's over. This is literally it. Well, unless you play in a weird Week 18 league, and then we just can't help you. Josh's chair going down completely ruined my mindset here. But regardless, don't let it ruin your mindset. You guys need to get those trophies from Trophy Smack. They have a wonderful women of fantasy football program line where they came out with rose gold. Josh is a champion of fantasy, or a champion of the women of fantasy football, and you can be a champion in fantasy after this week. If you guys use the promo code or the link in the description, WOFF, we get a little bit of the proceeds of whatever you guys spend at Trophy Smack. We use that proceed to help send the women to the wonderful events we send them to. Just recently got our media credentials approved for the NFL Super Bowl once again, and we'd like to put a little pocket money, give them a little bit back for what they're already spending to come give you guys the great coverage that they give you every year. So if you're looking for something for first place, something for last place, something for a commissioner, something for yourself, check out Trophy Smack. Check out the link in the description /WOFF. That pays the bills. Now it's time to get into news and notes, Josh. And the reason I wanted to get into that is because you and I fumbled a little bit this morning. One of our listeners was way ahead on Kenneth Walker than you and I were. I don't know how we missed it, both of us. But Kenneth Walker did re-injure his ankle in this game, did not practice. It's a Thursday game. Zach Charbonnet is a full practice. So whoever it was this morning that was begging for full Charbs on Thursday, Josh, it sounds like they might get it.
Yeah, they might get it. I mean, this news broke after the show from this morning. They typically practice in the afternoon. So, I mean, I can't imagine him not practicing 2 days before a Thursday game. This is a brand new ankle injury. There's no thanks, Austin. Yeah,
there you go, Austin. Hey, we give credit where it's due. As soon as I read it, I was like, oh shit. I was going to go back and rewatch the show, but I figured you'd be with us again tonight. So yes, our bad, big homie. But hey, it's not like you cut Zach Charbonnet based on our advice.
Yeah, right.
Don't do that.
No, and I think this is a really good matchup for Charbonnet too. I mean, going on the road in the cold weather, Seattle needs to be able to lean on the running game. Charbonnet is built to be able to do that.
Yeah. I'm going to just jump in a little bit here. Austin has 2 Week 18 leagues and Caesar has Week 18 leagues. Whew. Better you guys than me. That's for sure. Rest of the news, Arizona is placing starting offense.
So I'm going to preface this by saying our Week 18 show is mostly a season-long recap. But if you guys do have questions,
we'll answer your questions.
We'll answer them, but just make fun of you in the process for playing in Week 18.
The show sheet changes. Yeah, the show sheet changes. It's not what you're used to. We still answer every question, so don't worry about that. But yeah, we start recapping the year starting next week. Arizona's placing both starting offensive tackles, Paris Johnson and Jonah Williams, on IR. It's not good. Zay Flowers officially. Zay Flowers officially questionable for Wednesday. Justice Hill is out for tomorrow's game. Aaron Rodgers said he's dealing with an MCL injury, but he is going to play through it, which Josh, I was talking to somebody with advice today. If Aaron Rodgers is playing through an MCL, I can't imagine any Jets player is sitting down at least this upcoming week. So I think we can start the Jets with confidence. Drew Lock will be the start.
Devontae Adams with confidence. Let's be real here.
Actually, it was Breece Hall I was asked the question by, and I actually liked Breece Hall this week. So Drew Lock will be the starter for the Colts versus Sunday. Mason Rudolph will be the starter for the Jags on Sunday. George Pickens is officially off the injury report and will play versus the Chiefs. Christian Watson suffered a knee bruise on Monday night. He could play on Sunday, and we all heard the news on Tank Dell. Placed on IR. His season is over, and Josh had the note in here. I was reading the article from Matthew Betts over at the Fantasy Footballers. His 2025 is certainly in jeopardy because...
Yeah, he suffered a pretty similar knee injury that Bradley Chubb from Miami suffered around this time last season.
Okay.
Chubb missed all of this season.
Yeah.
So just put that into context.
What I understand, I've never heard of this before. It's a dislocated knee, not a dislocated kneecap. And that's what makes this super. Yeah. I think I read.
But I mean, he shredded like every freaking knee ligament.
Yes, I think I read Betts' take on it correctly. But if you guys aren't following Matthew Betts at the Fantasy PT, that was the article I was reading to check that out. We have great injury articles over at Football Guys, but Betts just happened to come up on my feed, and I went in and read that. That was actually where I read the Kenneth Walker news as well. I was like, oh shit. So yeah, Betts is better than us. Who cares? All right, Josh. Before we get into the show, looks like we already have questions, as we appreciate. Caesar, we're benching one of his three quarterbacks, Kyler, A-Rich, and Jordan Love. This is interesting for me, Josh. So I'm going to let you get us started here because I have a dilemma already.
I was going to say, I mean, losing your starting tackles makes me want to lean Kyler, but Carolina really doesn't have a great pass rush, so I'm not 100% sure that's going to matter much.
Rams this week, where you got caught on last week here. Yep.
Excuse me. Sorry. Rams do have a good pass rush.
Yeah.
That hurts Kyler a lot. We talked a little bit this morning on Wiretapped about A-Rich and kind of the upside that lends itself because this is a really good matchup for the rushing attack of the Colts against the Giants this week. Jordan Love is hard for me to get on board with. I mean, they put up 34 points. He threw one touchdown pass, I believe, and it was like 3 touchdowns to the running backs. Jordan Love really has not been throwing a ton of touchdowns. This is a game against Minnesota. We know how well Minnesota's passing attack is, and we also know how not great their passing defense is. Exactly. It makes me think that Jordan Love should be better.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to bench Kyler here.
If you look at my rankings right now, it's bench A-Rich, but that does not mean I don't like A-Rich this week. Josh and I have talked about that. There's upside there. I need to dig into this Kyler thing, Josh. I am also leaning benching Kyler right now. 2 offensive tackles and an offense that just can't get it done. I don't, obviously he can run for his life, but again, the Rams could put this guy down. Brandon Fisk could end Kyler's season with the wrong hit. So yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one and one that I'm not eager to start a player in right now.
I mean, we've got a couple days, right? None of these guys play Saturday until Saturday at minimum. So
yeah, well, A-Rich is Sunday.
Either come back on Saturday morning and ask us this question.
That's a great point, Josh. They're all Saturday at 8:15. Kyler is the late game on Saturday, so you have until 8:15 on Saturday to make that decision.
Saturday morning, 11 a.m. That's when you want to ask this question.
Austin said if Nico and Henry give him Cole tomorrow, he's done. Yeah, I think we all stand there. Nico Collins is scary, Josh. We were talking about.
I was going to say Nico's the scariest of both of these. I think Henry will be fine. Nico does worry me a little bit just because there's no one else really to take attention away from him.
Yep.
And Marlon Humphrey seems to like really step up when like playing these like true number one guys.
Yeah, that's kind of where I stood too. And like you said, no attention being pulled otherwhere. And then when I threw together our matchup article today, Baltimore over the last 5 weeks has been one of the top 5 teams against wide receivers, as in it's a bad matchup. So there's a lot working against this. And then inquiring minds want to know, Josh, who is the Grinch's favorite who?
I don't have one.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if I could put you on the spot. The only who I actually know is Cindy Lou Who. So.
I was going to say that Cindy Lou is the only one I know as well. I don't pay that much attention to those little things. I mean, I love the Grinch cartoon as a kid. I've seen the movies probably like once a piece. I don't really get into the holiday spirit to a point where I like rewatch certain Christmas movies every year.
Not the Grinch at all.
Not when I'm doing live streams on Christmas Eve. Okay,
no, that's fair. Yeah, no. I was going to share a different story.
And also work in a hotel, and I work on Christmas Day, so there's that.
The power of Dr. Seuss. When Donovan was super young, I asked him if I could read him Green Eggs and Ham. Green Eggs and Ham was my favorite Dr. Seuss book.
That was mine as well when I was a kid.
There you go. And he's like, no, I don't want you to. And I was like, well, we're reading it, so sit your ass down, because that's how I talk to toddlers, and that's a true story. So I made him listen to it. So I read him the whole book. And then he's like, you know what, Dad? I like that book. And I was like, you see, that's the whole point of the fucking story, man, because you thought you weren't going to like it, and then you gave it a try.
Oh, yeah.
Did it pass
my
on
mom
any
loves
wisdom?
to remind me how many times I would make her read me that book when I was a kid.
I carried that book on for a while, just about trying new things. We had to read a poem for a class, and I read that book to the entire class as my poem, because it's technically a poem, right? So
there you go.
All right, let's get into the show sheet, Josh, and we got to start with what we believe is the first tight end to hit the graphic. So Josh went 2-1 last week, giving him 13 correct on upsides for the season. And I believe that puts you into a firm lead, because I've been fucking around and finding out for the last few weeks. Josh's upsides for the week. He loves the man, the myth, the legend, Brock Bowers, for 20 plus fantasy points at New Orleans. He is rooting for the rookie Caleb Williams. Oh, Josh, I thought you were going to go 3 rookies. Caleb Williams, top 10 quarterback versus Seattle. And he goes with the second-year guy, Tank Bigsby, top 10 versus the Tennessee Titans. Or he might be a third-year guy at this point. But regardless, Josh,
but I mean, really, he didn't do anything his rookie season. He may as well be a rookie.
There you go. So obviously, Caleb Williams, top 10, Tank Bigsby, top 10. But that is not the one we're here to talk about. It's a big week for Brock Bowers. Tell us why he's going to stand up to the occasion.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can look at the, if you want to try to point the narrative that, this is a bad matchup because New Orleans allows the 5th fewest fantasy points per game to tight end since week 11. Here's who they played. The Browns and David Njoku. They had their bye. The Rams, Colby Parkinson. The Giants, Daniel Bellinger. The Commanders, the game where Zach Ertz was concussed. And then last week, against Tucker Kraft. Njoku had 9 catches for 81 yards. Kraft went for 63. They can be beat by good tight ends. But here's the simple fact of the matter. Brock Bowers is the best tight end in the NFL right now.
Without a doubt.
And he is a top target earner. 4 times this season, he is top 20 fantasy points. And 2 of those occasions, he went over 30. And he's topped 18 fantasy points on 2 other occasions. He is going for the tight end receiving record in this game. I think he's only like 9 behind Mike Ditka's record, which, again, not going to have an asterisk because of the amount of games played, right?
Yeah.
That's the upside. Mike Ditka used to coach the New Orleans Saints. Tell me you don't love a good narrative here, people. Come on.
Yeah. No, Josh, when obviously, like I said, I threw together the matchup report, but this is something we always tell people is take matchups with context. Mm-hmm. They look like they're great.
Tight ends always need to be taken with context, because more often than not, there's only a third of the NFL that has a respectable tight end. Let's be real.
Yeah. No, I think that makes a ton of sense. And like I said, I think everyone's going to be real happy to see Brock Bowers ascend back to the top. But as you pointed out, close to breaking Mike Ditka's record, also close to breaking Puka Nakua's rookie reception record, which to me is just because Puka broke.
More impressive, yeah.
He broke Jerry Rice's rookie record. I think that was because there was a big hubbub about him. I thought it was Jerry Rice he broke.
For receptions, I think so. The receiving yards, I believe it was Jamar Chase.
Okay, I thought one thing he broke was Jerry Rice, because people were all like up in arms about Puka Nacua being in the same sentence as Jerry Rice. But regardless, to have now a tight end come in and be ready to break that record is just baffling. Folks, we see every question in the chat. Most of you have been here before, but we do not ignore any questions. We answer them after segments. So as soon as we are done with this segment, we will knock out every single question in the chat. Josh, I went 0-3 last week, putting me at 10 wins for the season. Not good. And then I get
walking around and finding out.
And guess what? I'm going to do it again. If you guys have tuned into this show for any point, you know that my favorite thing that became a running joke on the show 3 years ago is I predict 2 touchdown games, and I am not good at predicting 2 touchdown games. However, if you are a betting individual, you only need to get 3 of these right to pay for your bets for the whole season. And I've gotten exactly 3 right this week. So why not end the season with 3 more to see what I can pull off? So my 3 2 touchdown specials for this week are going to be Bucky Irving against the Carolina Panthers, Saquon Barkley against the Dallas Cowboys. Josh, I wasn't sure if I wanted to jinx you on that, but I had to. Saquon Barkley against the Dallas Cowboys. And the one I'm going to talk about is Anthony Richardson against the New York Giants. As we mentioned, I like the upside that Richardson gives us this week, mainly because the Giants are terrible. And so first I want to start with Richardson. In his last 5 games, he has scored 4 rushing touchdowns. 5 games, 4 rushing touchdowns. And he has scored, no, it is 5. I'm sorry. I'm getting my math a little wrong here. In his last 5 games, he has scored 5 rushing touchdowns. In 4 games, he has found the end zone. In one of those games, he scored 2 touchdowns against the New York Jets in New York. You know, the exact same stadium where the New York Giants play. I'm not saying Anthony Richardson feels at home when he's playing in that stadium, but I'm not saying he doesn't either. And then you have the Giants, who give up the 10th most fantasy points to quarterbacks on the season. And they have allowed a 2 rushing touchdown game to Jalen Hurts, Josh. And it's not even like Hurts had a monster rushing game or even a good game that week. 7 carries for 22 yards, but 2 touchdowns. They also gave up a touchdown to Baker Mayfield just a few weeks ago. The Giants can be beaten by the run. And the fact of the matter is this: Anthony Richardson's going to run the ball. You and I joked this morning, Jonathan Taylor's tired, baby. He can't do any more work. 3 touchdowns last week, 218 yards. Jonathan Taylor's tired.
Got to spread the wealth a little bit.
Exactly. Speaking of spreading the wealth, we got a super chat, Josh. And super chats jump the line. We don't care if we are in the middle of a segment. Super chats jump the line. Tyler Sperry, thank you for the $2. If Jalen Hurts is not cleared, Josh, Bryce Young or Matthew Stafford. And for me, this is not even close. It is Bryce Young.
Yeah, you can't start Matthew Stafford right now. I keep trying to convince myself to do it. And every single time it just keeps coming back to bite me in the ass. Cooper Kupp isn't what Cooper Kupp was. Puka Nacua is still getting his. But I feel like they just really want to lean on Kieran Williams this time of year.
Yep.
And he's doing everything that they need to do. 120 some odd yards this week. Everything is there. Stafford just doesn't have the upside right now. Like, could he get hot? 100% he could get hot. It's a division game. Things could go absolutely bonkers. And with Arizona as beat up as they are, they can't control the clock with James Conner likely out this week. If that's the case, like, Kyler's going to have to carry this team. Kyler's been terrible. There's no way he's going to be able to do that. So what motivation or necessity does Stafford and the Rams actually have to throw the football? They can just run it with Kieran Williams. And they were mixing in Blake Corum this past week as well. I think you have to go you have to go Young because that is just where the upside lies right now. Tampa secondary is terrible. We talked about it earlier on Tuesday morning show. Bryce Young went for 298 the last time he played Tampa. I threw a little bit of water on it because, their defensive line is now healthy, and that's how you pressure someone who's 5'11". You get up in their face in the middle of the field. So but Canales has Young moving out of the pocket quite enough to where he can throw on the run extremely well. I would much prefer the upside of Young here versus whatever Matthew Stafford decides to do.
I'm going to throw something else at you, Josh. If Seattle loses on Thursday, doesn't that clinch for the Rams? Does Matthew Stafford maybe only play a half in this game?
I think so. Let me do some digging.
It's going to be close.
Let me do some digging because I know
I just
Ian
know
Rappaport did a playoff scenario tweet.
You can't convince me the Rams don't need to find out what they have as a backup quarterback when they have a 37-year-old starter. So.
Well, their backup is Jimmy Garoppolo. They know what they have. So
they have Garoppolo, but they still have that kid from Georgia a few years ago who's a grown-ass man. Yeah, so they still have them in there as well. Yeah.
It's funny.
I think that's an interesting thing. While Josh finishes looking at it
with a win and a Seattle loss or tie.
Okay. So it's
so they would still need to win even if Seattle loses.
Okay. We're going to continue with the super chat. Steven George in with $10. Thank you so much. Doesn't even have a question, just telling us he enjoys it. You're going to see us, first of all, before next season. This show does not go away. This show is every Wednesday for the entire year. Club Fantasy will have other shows as well. Dynasty focus shows. Once we get into March and April, I'll bring back my mock draft show, but no punt intended, every Wednesday at 9:00 for the entire 52 weeks of the year. So we're not going anywhere, Steven, but I can tell you we appreciate each and every one of you. This show is mad boring if you guys don't tune in, plain and simple. You don't want to hear me.
I like to think Joe and I try to keep it a little entertaining for you.
I'm saying if they don't tune in, Josh, if we're just sitting here talking to an empty room like we used to do 4 and 5 years ago, it's not as fun. I guess it's that whole if a tree falls in the woods. We can be as funny as we want, but if nobody's listening, it doesn't matter.
Fair enough.
And then if we get to Joe's picks, last week Joe went 1 and 2, putting him at 8 correct for the season. Joe has been laughably bad because I haven't gotten a correct pick, I think, in 3 weeks now, and Joe is still 2 picks behind me. Joe has Trey Benson, top 10 versus the Rams, Calvin Ridley, top 15 versus Jacksonville, and Kendre Miller, top 12 versus Las Vegas. And I do love, Josh, that we spent our entire morning pouring water on Trey Benson and Kendre Miller, and then Joe just has them as top picks. But we're going to avoid those.
He must have been listening.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're going to avoid those because we were already shitting on them this morning. Let's talk about Calvin Ridley, Josh, taking on the Jaguars.
Yeah, I mean, in 6 games with Mason Rudolph this year, Ridley averages about a little over 12 fantasy points a game. Almost 8 targets, 4 receptions, almost 64 receiving yards. He's not really scored a ton of touchdowns, but that would stretch over a full season of about 205 fantasy points. First matchup against Jacksonville, we all kind of had that, revenge game narrative. Only went for 12.9 fantasy points, 7 catches, 59 yards. Look, maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. The upside is certainly there. Jacksonville's defense has been atrociously bad. If you want to believe in Tennessee, have at it. That's the way I look at it. I mean, I'm starting him in a 3rd place matchup because Kenneth Walker's out, so kind of have to. But I mean, Ridley
and Nick Westbrook-Ikhine both found the end zone last week. So
yeah, well, and I think the biggest part of this to me is that Brian Thomas Jr. is absolutely balling for the Jaguars.
Yeah,
and Jacksonville's going to put up points, whether that's on the ground because I think that Tank Bigsby is going to have a pretty good game, or because Brian Thomas Jr. goes off. If that's the case, Tennessee's going to have to throw the football. Their number 1 option right now is Calvin Ridley.
Yeah,
it's him and Chigoziem. So,
and you'll find out later, I really like Chigoziem Okonkwo this week as well. So just a reminder of, I'll just read off. We're doing really well in time. I'm going to read off everyone's picks one last time. Josh likes Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers likes Josh too. Josh likes Brock Bowers for over 20 fantasy points. Caleb Williams to finish top 10. Tank Bigsby to finish top 10. I like Bucky Irving, Anthony Richardson, and Saquon Barkley to score 2 touchdowns this week. Joe likes Trey Benson and Kendre Miller to finish top 12 and Calvin Ridley to finish top 15. We got some chat going on, Josh. Let's get into it. Scamper starts off with a hard-hitting question. What is our favorite food to have on Christmas? I'm going to tell you this right now. I am not a ham guy. Marlia knows I'm not a ham guy. Marlia is the best cook in the entire world. So Marlia always makes something completely delicious. We have been on a lasagna kick. So tomorrow she is making a white sauce lasagna with chicken and bechamel sauce. So I am very much looking forward to that. And I am making the French cannelé, a dish that I have perfected as our after dinner snack. So it's going to be a good day at the Weisse house, and our house is going to smell like rum and vanilla. My favorite smells in the entire world. And I'm not even joking about that. Josh,
I know you're not joking. That's
yeah.
I mean, I had surf and turf tonight. So
hey, Josh is getting down on Christmas Eve. He ain't waiting for the day.
No, we always when I go to my mom's for Christmas, she always does this like sausage and egg casserole with a hash brown casserole.
Okay.
And so that's kind of like our traditional like Christmas breakfast. I typically work on Christmas Day, as I mentioned before. I work in a hotel. We don't really have off days because we're considered an amenity of the hotel, the restaurant that I work at. So, I don't really get like the Christmas dinner aspect of things. Like I'll probably eat at the restaurant, but
yeah.
That hash brown casserole is A1.
I'm going to put you on the spot, Josh. If I correct me if I'm wrong. Your mother is Hispanic, correct?
Correct.
Is the sausage chorizo? Like, is it chorizo? No. Oh, okay. Because I fucking love chorizo, so I got really excited for it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird, like because we're Cuban, right? Not all Cubans are into like spicy foods.
Okay, that's fair.
That's definitely
chorizo
more like
is traditionally
American.
I was gonna say it's traditionally Mexican or from Spain. So
yeah, and I'm not a big fan of spice, like spice. Like
okay, just wondering because I have chorizo often, so I was like, that sounds delicious. So all right. Moving on, Mr. Magic. Merry Christmas. Thank you. He's in a pickle. Starting 3 out of Cooper Kupp, Devonta Smith, Keenan Allen, Zach Charbonnet, Alvin Kamara, And it sucks because the games are spread all over the week, so he has to pick. So we have to start 3 of these guys, Josh. Now, I do want to point out Alvin Kamara is not playing, plain and simple.
No, I don't think he
everything I keep reading is season's over.
I think the only, I know that he wants to come back because he wants to try to hit that 1,000 yards, but I think it's going to be in week 18.
Yeah.
That's what I really think.
Yeah. So I would not bank on Kamara. I'm all in on Sharps at this point, Josh. Now that I've read
Sharps and Keenan are the 2 like must starts for me. Yeah.
And then I think
Jalen is out. That makes it very hard to want to start Devonta. I mean, AJ Brown had almost a 60% target share from Kenny Pickett. Like, that is absurd. They were just like, and especially after the drop with Devonta, like, why would Kenny Pickett want to go to him again, right?
Yep.
But I still think I trust him more than Cooper Kupp right now.
And that's fair. If it's Kenny Pickett, I'm not going Smith, but I get what you're saying. But if it's Kenny Pickett has a thing for AJ Brown, which he should. So I'm definitely going to go Cooper Kupp.
I will say that Deron Bland in the secondary with Dallas, he is their best weapon. He wants to take on those top options. He did pretty well against Mike Evans on Sunday night. Obviously, top corners really don't matter much against AJ Brown. I mean, he dominated Marshawn Lattimore this week, but at least there's that idea that, you know, if you are a little bit scared off of their best corner on the Eagles' best weapon, that maybe they look more towards the secondary option in Devonta Smith. There's upside in that.
Josh, I'm going to let Mr. Magic, I was going to say cut the line, but we're actually on his question. Isaac Guerrero over Kupp in that situation?
Yes, that I would.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought we would both agree on that one. We're very down on the Rams right now, so I think that makes a ton of sense. Caesar needs us to start 2. Nico Collins, T. Higgins, Cooper Kupp is going to be a hard no from this crew. Drake London, who is also dealing with an injury. Malik Neighbors, he's already starting Amon-Ra St. Brown. So, Josh, I know you were on an anti-T. Higgins kick last week, and he did end up scoring. So I was right and you were wrong. Are you still on that kick with T. Higgins? Because right away, T. Higgins is in the best offense of this bunch, and there's no argument to be had there.
I was going to say the options that I was looking at here are Neighbors and Higgins. I mean, it would be Neighbors and Collins, but again, like just the lack of situation around. Yeah. To me, it just dampens his upside a little bit, and factor in, you know, it's not the best matchup. I mean, Trent McDuffie's just been shutting down everybody this year. And teams have largely been avoiding throwing his way.
Yeah.
I just don't wait. No, that was last week. What am I talking about with Collins?
Oh, did you get the things confused?
Houston, yeah. Houston plays the Ravens.
God, but you actually said it.
This
earlier.
is what happens when we push forward a day.
But you said it earlier though.
But he's gonna have Marlon Humphrey playing,
who tends to step up against these elites, and he's the only player that team has to worry about now. So.
Yeah, and even then, like Nate Wiggins, when you look at a lot of his advanced metrics, like he's actually been playing really well on the opposite side. This matchup really does not lend itself to a big Nico Collins way. And I'm not saying that Nico can't make like one big play. Like we've seen that happen. He is a very talented wide receiver. I just think with the options at hand, Neighbors with Drew Lock is going to be fine. And Higgins, Bengals, I mean, you want to throw away from Patrick Surtain anyway, right?
Exactly.
Like Jamar Chase is still going to get his, but I think this lends itself to a much bigger.
It's almost what happened last week. It's almost what happened last week is they had to focus on Jamar Chase, and Jamar Chase eventually got his, but Higgins and Yoshivas got open because of the attention that was spent on Jamar Chase.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what the Denver Broncos do. Stephen George, Merry Christmas. Final question for the season, but remember, we're not going anywhere, buddy. So if you have off-season questions, we're here to help. Half PPR, Josh, we're going to start one running back out of Tyrone Tracy, Tony Pollard, and Kendre Miller.
Oh my God. I guess Tyrone Tracy.
I said the numbers actually bear out that this is not a bad matchup for Tyrone Tracy. However, Josh, I'm going to go Pollard if he's playing. The upside is there.
I just
obviously,
don't trust him right now with that.
You want him to be healthy.
So limited the last 2 weeks.
I get it. Tracy has been such an anomaly to me lately. I just can't get on board with him right now, or the Giants in general. I guess I do like him better if Drew Lock's playing, because I did mention that this morning that I was staying away from Tracy if it was Tommy Cutlets. Drew Lock, I'll agree for agreeing sake. Tracy makes sense. Pollard's one I need to dig into and see about how bad the usage has been, because like you said, it's been an interesting couple of weeks for Tony Pollard.
Yeah, and this is where I think we both strongly disagree with Joe's Kendra Miller top 12 pick.
Yeah, I don't get that at all. Like, the Saints are legitimately the worst team in the NFL right now. So, as Josh pointed out, first shutout of the season in week 6, the final game of week 16. Josh, we talked about this a little bit this morning. If J.K. Dobbins is active, is he a better play than Tyjae Spears off of the waiver wire? Dobbins has that New England defense.
Against New England, 100%. They can't stop the run.
Yeah, that's where we stood, is if they have the balls to bring Dobbins back, they're bringing him back to play. That's plain and simple. And
especially because they're still fighting for playoff seeding, right?
Yep.
So I don't think this is going to be a scenario. Like, there's still a chance, obviously, that they'll slowly work him in, especially after Gus Edwards had a good week last week. Like, if he'd had another dud, I could fully see J.K. Dobbins just being, 70% snap share, like, right out of the gate, right? But Edwards scores 2 touchdowns, breaks off a 40-yard rush. I think that lends itself to a little bit more of a 50-50 split, which, again, we've seen with this duo over the years, going back 100%. To their days in Baltimore as well. But just kind of how Harbaugh tends to manage the workloads between those two, especially with, Dobbins coming off of the injury and the injury list and all this stuff. I still think it's a better play just given the matchup. But again, you have some time with this, right? Because Dobbins plays Saturday, Spears plays Sunday. Obviously, if Dobbins does a play, it's a quick pivot.
Well,
I still feel like we're paying more attention to Spears because of the touchdowns.
Yeah,
the
100%.
Efficiency hasn't been there. And we talked about this morning. The efficiency hasn't been there. It's the touchdowns, the garbage time, whatever it's been. Like, it's just overinflating the value, in my opinion. Which, don't get me wrong, I do love Spears as a talent. I do.
It's just not how their offense is.
He's just not getting the run with Tony Pollard, a healthy Tony Pollard.
Yep. Caesar heard through the grapevine that if KC wins tomorrow, Buffalo may sit Cook in that game because they just really don't need him. He's hoping that's true because he is facing James Cook. Though, Josh, obviously we have no insight on this, but I will say Buffalo is a team that will rest starters. Those 2 blowout wins earlier in the season, they sat Josh Allen for like the fourth quarter in both of those games.
Well, see, and that's what I think what would happen, right? Like, they'll still use Cook. They probably sit him in the second half, or he'll only play 3 quarters.
So you're going to have to survive
I don't think
a
it's
half.
going to be like, oh, you know what? Take a seat. We don't need you this week. Dial up Ray Davis and Ty Johnson. Like, I don't think it's going to be anything like that.
Yep, I think it's halftime. So just hope he has a quiet first half, but somehow they're still winning, because that's essentially what you need to have happen. Mm-hmm. Our good friend Faith says, Merry Christmas, Faith. Thanks for tuning in for a bit.
I figured you would like the Grinch hat, Faith.
Yeah, the
background, yes, has not changed. I'm sorry, I get that, but
yeah,
the hat did. The
head. You've been calling him the Grinch for so long. He's finally just leaning in.
I had to lean in. I had to steer into it.
I love it. Jeremy, I'm not going to destroy your last name. We're going to choose between Bo Nix, Brock Purdy, Kyler Murray, or Anthony Richardson in a 4-point league.
A 4-point. Ooh. I almost think you have to lean with a Rich here. Bo Nix is interesting.
I was just going to say Nix has the rushing upside and he's playing Cincinnati. I'm still going to lean Nix, but man, is Richardson interesting.
Yeah, Richardson is very appealing. I mean, the over-under on that Bengals-Broncos game is 49.5. So, like, it should be a pretty solid.
Yeah, I want every part of that game I can get as long as the weather cooperates. So,
yeah, it's Nix, but A-Rich is going to make it close.
Tyler reminds us that Puka broke Jerry Rice's record in front of Jerry Rice. I knew there was a whole thing there, so I'm happy I didn't misremember that.
Speaking of Tyler, hang on. We got a super chat from him.
Oh, thank you. Tyler jumps in with $5. Yep. We'll be right back. We're not missing any questions, but super chats jumped the line. Tyler with $5. We appreciate you, buddy. So someone in his league dropped Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown. Which one should he go after? He has AJ Brown and Jalen McMillan. We're pretty in.
So you're not dropping AJ Brown.
Yeah, I wouldn't drop either one of these guys for either one of these guys. But if you have a roster spot without having to drop one of those guys, I'm going after Worthy.
That's exactly who I would go after too. Yeah, McMillan he's been too good, too reliable. Yes. I love the bump in target volume that Worthy's been getting. We talked about him on the recap show as well.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would lean him over McMillan though at this point.
I'm starting AJ Brown and McMillan over Worthy and Hollywood for sure. So I'm not going to drop either one of those, but if you have someone else you can drop, we both prefer Worthy and the way they're using him. Josh pointed out yesterday, Worthy is on the same track is Tyreek Hill. And if that's the vision they have in line for him, we could be in for a really nice worthy game to end the season. But again, I'm not changing any of your starters to go get those guys. Trone jumps in with David Njoku likely to miss this week. Josh, did I miss this too? I didn't hear anything about this.
It was brought up on this morning's show. Njoku did suffer a knee injury last week.
Oh, that's right. You did talk about that this morning. Okay.
There is questions. I still think he plays, but again, it could worsen. You never know. Anytime you're dealing with knee injuries, let's be real here. I mean, the answer here is Okonkwo.
Oh, I didn't even read the rest of the question. I was letting you talk about the thing, but it is Okonkwo without a doubt. Pat Freiermuth, interesting, but Chig Okonkwo, 21 targets over the last 2 weeks. I have a stat that I wasn't able to fit into my stream of the week because it was taking me over the minute. Only 50 tight ends on the season have 21 targets, and Chig Okonkwo has it over the last 2 weeks.
Dude, that should have been your entire stat line for Chig Okonkwo.
So yeah, Chig Okonkwo has done in 2 weeks what every team in the league has struggled to do on the season. So shout out Chigoziem Okonkwo. Jerry in with another question. Rico Dowdle, Zach Charbonnet, Tyrone Tracy. If from what I'm hearing about Kenneth Walker, this is Zach Charbonnet without a question.
Yep, 100%. If Kenneth Walker sits, which again, we'll know this fairly quickly. The other guys play on Sunday.
Yep.
Charbonnet plays Thursday night. If Kenneth Walker is ruled out, you're rolling with Sharps.
Yep. Scampers jumps in. He's been cooking pozole all day. I had to look up what it was. It is a Mexican stew, and he also mentioned that it warms up the house and it smells great. And he's also making tamales just for the two of them. So he is out here putting in that work. Man. Exactly. I'd say he's out here putting in the work, making that great food. And he jumps in with a question, Josh. Washington football team defense versus Atlanta are the Chargers against New England. I always answer defense first. Chargers happen to be my number one defense and my stream of the week. So I do like Washington a lot. Chargers are going to be my pick this week, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I like what, anytime you got a defense going against a rookie quarterback, it's easy to start salivating over that idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
they're also going against Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, and that's the other side of it, Well, but here's the thing. Look at exactly what they did in the second half when Kenny Pickett took over for Jalen Hurts. They built that defense to say, Kenny Pickett, you need to beat us. Saquon Barkley had 22 rushes for 41 yards in the second half. So, going into this game, you have a young, inexperienced quarterback, and your job as the defense is to make him beat you. So their game plan is going to be shut down Bijan Robinson. If they can shut down Saquon Barkley, I love Bijan. I don't think he's Saquon good yet.
Not yet.
He's up there, but he's not Saquon good yet.
Yep. Our good buddy HoofTube, Happy Chrysler.
Happy Chrysler.
Glad to have you in the building. And he had a parlay question, but he mentioned that we may have answered some of that parlay question already. So, he's just telling us his parlay of the week. So it's not even a question, but he did. So Joe Mixon, anytime touchdown. Nico Collins, over 6.5 receptions. Andrews touchdown. Najee Harris, under 42.5. I love that pick. Jaylen Warren, TD is a little worrisome. And then he likes the over on Worthy, as do we. Josh, my biggest worry here is Nico Collins going to get open 7 times?
I honestly don't think he will. But I like the narrative, the idea behind it, because he really is all they have to throw to, right? Like we talked this morning about how they ultimately will need to operate this offense, right? It's going to be dump offs to Mixon. It's going to be a lot of Dalton Schultz. And you've got to be able to take your shots at Nico because they don't have anybody else.
Yeah.
Like Deontay Johnson's not going to be active for this game. They just picked him up off waivers. I would be shocked if he did. And even if he plays, what is it? A package of like 5 plays, probably.
Yeah.
It's not going to be anything crazy. So that onus is going to fall on Nico. John Mechie's been out with an injury.
Yeah.
So now you're looking at Robert Woods and Xavier Hutchinson.
Yeah.
Maybe. Like
he
the depth chart is not great
last week. So
yeah. So I mean, in theory, he should very easily blow past this. But it's against a good pass defense, and they know how to take away a top option. So that pick does worry me a little bit.
I'm rooting for you, Hoove. That's all I can say.
100%. Always rooting for Hoove.
Tyler says, thanks to the guys who got him to the finals. You did it yourself, man. Thanks to you for watching. Congratulations on the finals. Now go win the championship.
Yes, sir.
Our good friend Vince Mapstone chimes in. Merry Christmas and all that jazz. And
I think it's already Christmas down under. So,
well, he also mentioned that you have to pick two of do the dishes, get drunk, take a nap, or get drunk.
So, get drunk and get drunk.
Yeah, I'll say.
Mostly because I don't get to do that on Christmas.
There you go. Oh, I'm going to give us 1 second on your question, Jeremy. Who've almost swaps out the Warren touchdown for Pickens now that he's healthy. That's interesting.
I still don't like that pick. Pickens touchdown. Those rarely happen anyway. Why
yeah,
would I don't see how it would happen against a better corner. So
don't come to us for validation, Hoove. You won't find it here.
I'm the Grinch, baby.
That's right. Jeremy ends this segment, Josh, with another defense question. He is asking Colts or Dolphins. And Josh, these are two of my favorite streaming defenses this week. Of course, as I'm saying this, my rankings go away. So I'm just going to spit off the top of the dome with this one. I think I like the Colts a lot better. And I do. I have them as my defense 3. The Giants are just a train wreck, whether it's Drew Lock or not. The Colts are a little bit better defense than Miami in general. So while they both have great matchups, I'm going to take the better defense, and I'm going to go with the Colts in this one.
Well, we talked about this too in the morning, right? Dolphins are not an opportunistic defense.
Nope.
The Colts, they can get turnovers. I mean, they
100%.
had they created 2 turnovers against Tennessee, right?
Yep.
If I'm not mistaken, I think they had at least 1 interception, but they know how to create turnovers. Like, they're an aggressive defense, which is also why you can throw one.
Yep.
But yeah, Drew Lock's not scaring anybody. I would go the Colts here as well.
All right. Let's move on to the downsides, Josh. So, as we mentioned last week, or as I mentioned, we keep our records. Josh went 1-2 last week. 24 correct. You'll notice these records are very different. We are very good at telling you who's going to suck. We are not so good at telling you who's going to be good. So Josh has CJ Stroud throws 2 or more interceptions against Baltimore. Didn't Joe make this exact prediction last season and it didn't work out real well?
Yes, but he did it at the very first.
It was the first game. Yeah.
Yeah. And they dropped like 4 interceptions.
They really did. I just think it's funny that we had this exact stat line before. Rico Dowdle with 10 or fewer fantasy points. And Josh, I want you to tell me about Courtland Sutton outside of the top 20 against Cincinnati, who most would view as one of the worst defenses in football right now.
Yeah, I was going through and I was looking at this and I was like, man, every single time we look at wide receivers against Cincy, it's like, yeah, dial them up, man. They've been terrible. We talk about Philly having a great secondary, great pass defense, etc., right? Yes, they did just get torched, lost their safety in the middle of the game, is what it is. But if you think that Philly has a really good secondary and they know how to shut down wide receivers, Cincinnati has allowed a grand total of 1/10 of a fantasy point per game more than Philadelphia.
Oh, wow.
That's how close these secondaries are when it comes to giving up fantasy points to the wide receiver position. Since week 13, Cincinnati has allowed the 5th fewest fantasy points to wide receivers at about only 108 receiving yards per game. The caveat here is that they've allowed exactly 1 receiving touchdown per game to wide receivers. But this is why I'm fading Courtland Sutton here. He is the top dog in this offense.
Without a doubt. Yep.
How often do we see Bo Nix and Sean Payton say, you know what? The top option's covered. We're going elsewhere. That's why you have touchdowns scored by Troy Franklin, Devon Vele, Lil Jordan Humphrey, third string tight ends, backup running backs, right? This all lends itself to a not great matchup for Courtland Sutton. Yes, you are still starting him. I'm not shooting for the upside here because I feel like that this Cincinnati's bad secondary is kind of a false narrative at this point because the stats are telling us differently.
Yeah, the touchdowns are interesting, but as you mentioned, Bo Nix will spread the ball too. It could be Mims, it could be Troy Franklin, it could be Devon Vele who ends up finding the end zone. So yeah, there's reason to believe that Cincinnati, despite their shortcomings, they have good corners. They just need to play like good corners.
And he's not afraid to get in your face. Like, he can easily throw Courtland Sutton off his route. Like, it's not like Courtland Sutton's a burner by any means.
Absolutely. I went 0 for 3 last week. Again, I don't think I've gotten a single pick right, top or bottom, in at least 2 weeks at this point. But I'm still tied with Josh with 24 correct on the entire season. And because I went with all 2 touchdown specials, I'm going with all 0 touchdown specials. And I don't know how much of mine I need to explain. I'm going to go no touchdown of Ramondre Stevenson. Chargers have actually been allowing a lot of points to running backs as of late, They have not allowed a lot of touchdowns, and I just think you're going to see a situation where Ramondre Stevenson gets shut down. Obviously, we know he's touchdown dependent. That's something Josh has been talking about all season long. If he doesn't find the end zone, they're getting Antonio Gibson way too involved. I'm thinking no Khalil Shakir touchdown. I don't love his usage as of late, and the Jets have actually been pretty good against wide receivers. And I'm going to stick with Trey McBride, just keeping this thing as complete ass.
I think this is your reverse jinx. That's what this is.
And it could be, Josh, but it was actually a stat that got me there. I looked at which team has allowed the fewest touchdowns over the last, I think it was 6 games. And the Rams have actually not allowed a tight end touchdown since week 8. And that was to Josh Oliver on 2 catches for 30 yards. Tucker Kraft did drop a 2-touchdown game on them. But other than that, they've only allowed tight end touchdowns in 3 games this entire season. The Rams have been very good against the tight end. Trey McBride, when he played them back in week 2, went for 6 and 67. And of course, no touchdown because Trey McBride doesn't score touchdowns. So I'm going to keep this thing going. I'm hoping it's a reverse jinx, Josh. But when I looked this over, the stats screamed out to me, no Trey McBride touchdown this week. The streak continues until week 18. It also doesn't help. No tackles this week. When the team loses 2 tackles, they ask their tight ends to block more. So
this is true.
So that'll be interesting.
That could be a bad fantasy week altogether for McBride, which really sucked considering he dropped a dud last week too.
And he probably got people to the finals or at least into the playoffs. So if you survived him last week, do you want to risk it with him this week? That's a great point. And then Joe gave us 3 picks. Joe went 2-1 last week, and Joe actually took the lead in the downside contest with that 2-1 last week. 25 correct on the season. He has Justin Herbert outside of the top 12, DK Metcalf outside of the top 40. And the one I think we need to talk about, Josh, because he certainly has gotten people to championships. Chuba Hubbard not cracking the top 15 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, I did a little digging on this. You look at what Hubbard did the last time they played Tampa. He only had 42 yards, and he had a fumble, didn't have any catches. This was, I believe, Jonathan Brooks's first or second game back into the rotation. Of course, he didn't last very long, retore his ACL. So we've gotten a lot more Chuba Hubbard. There's not really any depth behind Chuba Hubbard right now. So I think this will change. He's obviously going to see some targets, but something that has kind of flipped with this Tampa Bay defense lately, they were really bad against the run the first half of the season. Then their defensive tackles got healthy, and they have been stalwarts. The stingiest defense in allowing fantasy points to the running back position since week 13. So this is 4 games worth. They're allowing 11 fantasy points per game. That's it. That is not going to get you top 15 numbers, right? So I want to give a shout out here real quick to Ryan Heath over at Fantasy Points. We do a lot of, data digging for our Tuesday morning show, and I found this one. So in the 7 games this season where Carolina hasn't lost by multiple scores, so basically 1-score games, Chuba Hubbard averages 20.9 fantasy points per game, which is the RB2 in that category behind Saquon Barkley.
Wow.
Every other game where they're losing by double-digit points, he averages 12.3 fantasy points per game, RB27.
Interesting.
So I wanted to point this out because the current over-under on this game is 48.5, with Tampa favored by 8.
Yeah.
So which narrative are you buying? Because that's what's going to decide how Chuba Hubbard scores in this matchup.
Yeah. I think you pointing out, that last game was 3 weeks ago. So it's not like that we should expect anything wildly different this time around.
Correct.
So, all right, guys.
Well, like I said, you had a different wrinkle because Jonathan Brooks was involved, right?
Yeah, but Jonathan Brooks was never that involved to begin with.
No, he really wasn't. He just took the passing down work. But Chuba Hubbard still ran more routes.
Yep. So. All right, folks, let me recap those picks. These are our downsides. These are the players we're telling you we don't think are going to do well. CJ Stroud throws 2 picks against Baltimore. Rico Dowdle scores 10 or fewer fantasy points, and Courtland Sutton finishes outside of the top 20 are the picks that Josh gave you. I went with all players who I think will not score a touchdown this week. Ramondre Stevenson, Khalil Shakir, Trey McBride are not going to find the end zone. And Joe told us that Justin Herbert will be outside of the top 12. DK Metcalf will be outside of the top 40. And Chuba Hubbard, as Josh just explained, not likely to finish in the top 15. That is going to wrap up the downside segment. Josh, we got a few more questions before we get into my stream of the week. Who wants to know if Richardson gets benched after this week, if the Colts have a shot to make the playoffs in week 18? They can't go back again to Joe Flacco. It makes zero sense. So
no, they're not going to do that. Flacco didn't do anything to light the world on fire and actually show them that he can help them win games. I mentioned it on Monday's recap show. Richardson only completed 7 passes. Not great, but he only threw 11. So, I mean, it's still not a bad percentage.
63% completion percentage.
But when you're getting 218 rushing yards from Jonathan Taylor, you don't need to throw the football. That's how you protect a young quarterback, right? Yeah. Keep the ball out of his hands. Let the playmakers do the jobs. I'm not buying that he gets benched. I think that's that's about as long of a shot is happening as them making the playoffs.
Yeah, but that's a good point.
You know, take it for what you will.
Vince Mapstone just chiming in, thanking us for all the streams this year. We appreciate you, buddy. Like I said, these shows are really boring if you guys don't tune in. We appreciate you guys being there. And just a reminder to everybody, this show does not go anywhere when the season ends. Every Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, no pun intended, will be here. We'll start breaking down and recapping the season. We are very much an accountability show. We'll tell you about all the shit we got right, all the shit we got wrong. And then we'll start leading into the draft shows, which are coming at you fast, where we start telling you guys about the stars of tomorrow. So you're stuck with us. We're not going anywhere. Caesar wants to know if we're considering the Ravens defense over the Bills or if he's overthinking it. It's certainly a consideration for me, Josh, but I think the Bills are going to beat down the Jets. So I'm going to stick with the Bills in this one.
Yeah, I'd probably stick with the Bills as well. I mean, Ravens are playing the Texans. I mean, the Texans can get hot, and it's a road game for the Ravens. So you never know how road games are going to flip the script. I mean, they are favored by 5.5. So, you know, I expect Derrick Henry to kind of do Derrick Henry things. Yeah. I think I'd still stick with the Bills here.
Yeah. Vince throwing some things at you here for your Bengals take. Lou Anarumo has simplified the defensive playbook, and that's why the young kids are playing better and not getting lost on routes. He says avoid the pass. So
yeah, I mean,
he thinks you'll still see teams.
Apparently, he overcomplicated it in the early part of the season, so that's why they were sucking so bad.
Yeah, no, I mean that's a good point. I've been using Washington as my benchmark, but maybe the Bengals are an equal thing. Washington was so bad against wide receivers over the first 4 games. They were a must start. They've gotten so good against the wide receiver lately that you can't trust them, plain and simple. So it's probably the same exact sort of thing you're dealing with the Cincinnati Bengals. Trone said he is worried about starting Kupp at the flex. Yes, as we all are. But he has to choose, Josh. Would it be Darnell Mooney or possibly Amir Abdullah? See, these are the ones, Josh, where I'm not going to go too far with it. I'll just start Kupp. I still think the upsides there are better than these two. Maybe Amir Abdullah.
Abdullah definitely has the better matchup. I feel like Darnell Mooney with the rookie against the defensive coordinator that can beat a rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
Well, let me rephrase that. Defensive play caller, Dan Quinn, the head coach now, not necessarily the coordinator. Yeah, I think I would stick with Kupp here. Again, we know what the floor is. It's not great. The floor really isn't much different with Mooney or Abdullah. You know,
yep.
I mentioned this 2 weeks ago, or on the recap show. I was like, Cooper Kupp is what he is now. Like, we know what he can do and we know what he has been, but we need to accept that this is basically what you're getting. Like, you've gotten it this far with him struggling. You might as well just ride it out and just pray to God he gives you that one last hurrah. That's kind of where I'm at with him.
Yeah.
That's basically what this season with Travis Kelce has been. It's that last
Mooney
hurrah,
wasn't bad last week. 5 for 82.
Fantasy. Well, okay, 13, I guess, if you're looking at full PPR.
Yeah.
But.
So, interesting. Scott White wants to know what we're hearing about Carr and Hurts. Carr,
I heard on the broadcast that Carr is itching to try to do everything he can to come back.
Interesting, because a week ago, Fantasy Pro says likely done for the season. So I find that
likely done for the season, and the players doing everything he can to come back. They're two different things, but also can very much be the same thing. I mean, seriously.
Here's what it really comes down to. I'm not fucking starting Derek Carr. I don't care if he's coming back. Plain and simple.
Even if he is coming back, I wouldn't start him. When it comes to Jalen Hurts, it seems like he's trending that way, but they're taking it week to week. That's literally what Nick Sirianni has said. It's a head injury. You know,
they're not going to risk.
You don't want to fuck with head injuries, plain and simple.
Exactly.
And the Eagles have the Giants in week 18. So even if they say, you know what, we're going to sit you a week, we're going to let your head get straight, they should feel confident in beating the Giants with a backup quarterback because the Giants are that bad, even if Dallas comes in and beats Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, you just simply cannot risk Jalen Hurts when you're going into the playoff as the 1 or the 2 seed, plain and simple. So Jason Ortiz wants to know, could he play Marvin Harrison Jr., who scored 26 fantasy points against the Rams earlier this year, instead of Thielen, McMillan, or Tracy? And he did throw in the game theory here. He wants to start MHJ because his opponent is starting Kyler, and he is starting Daniels while his opponent is starting Terry. To me, this is reading too much into the game theory part of this, Josh. MHJ has been terrible. Now you're dealing with a team with no tackles. If your opponent is still going to start Kyler Murray, thank your lucky stars he did you a favor. I'm starting Jalen McMillan in this one.
Words right out of my mouth. I was like, that was a different Rams defense back when Marvin Harrison played. If you remember, actually, that was the week that I put him on the thumbnail, and he did go for a big week. So, I would very much go McMillan here.
Yeah, that was early on in the season, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was like week 5.
That was week 2, bro.
Okay, never mind.
That was his 2 touchdown
wasn't the week
game
that I had him on the. That wasn't.
But what's crazy about that is, this is what we were talking about, Josh, because I pointed this out. I think the Rams are one of those teams that have gotten so much better against the wide receiver as the season has progressed. I'm bringing it up right now. So I'm just going to go back to week 10, whereas the Rams since week 10 give up the 10th fewest points to fantasy wide receivers. So don't read too much into what happened in week 2 when you're looking at week 10. Be happy. You know what? Start Marvin Harrison all the way until game time so that your opponent doesn't think to bench Kyler Murray because you want
just set an alarm and don't forget to pivot to Jalen McMillan.
And then get McMillan in there. But don't give your opponent a reason to not trust Kyler Murray. You want him to play Kyler Murray this week. And Scott popped up cortisone shots for Carr. He knows it's crazy, but he plays in 2 week 18 leagues. Do we do a week 18 show? We absolutely do a week 18 show, Scott. And what we're going to do is we're going to make fun of you for playing in a week 18 league, but we are going to answer every question that you have for us. We're not league shamers. We don't care that you play in a week 18. It's just insanely hard. But what I can tell you is our week 18 show is usually a season-long recap show, but we answer every question throughout the show. So you come join us. We're normally Wednesday night, Scott. I don't know if yours is a name I've seen a lot. We're normally Wednesday night at 9 p.m. We're early this week because of the holiday, but we will be there for you next Wednesday, ready to help win you a couple of week 18 championships. So good luck this week. I hope it works out real well for you. Guys, if you have any last questions, we're getting to the last segments of the show. It is Christmas Eve, so we're going to try to get out of here as quickly as possible. But if you have questions, we're not going to go without answering them. So we are going to do my stream of the week. Josh had underdog props on here. I did not pick an underdog prop, so I'll tell you, Josh.
All right, I picked 3 of them to cover everybody. So.
I love it. So Josh has underdog props. So we have 2 segments left. I'm going to knock out my segment right now. We'll look for questions. We'll knock out the last segment, and then we're getting out of here. I do stream of the week. I see a lot of new names in the chat. So if you've never seen my streams of the week before, I go in and look for 5 guys at each position, quarterback, tight end, and defense, that are under 50% rostered on ESPN. I normally do these on Wednesdays, so you don't even have to blow waiver on them. But with Christmas starting the games tomorrow and Christmas being tomorrow, I did it on Tuesday, so these will cost you waiver claims. I do this every week. I write an article about it. I tell you how good I've done. Just to tell you how well I've done, I updated my numbers today. Not my necessarily top guy every week because I'm not perfect, but I do give you 5 options every week. Of those 5 options every week, I have built the QB one, the tight end one, and the defense one. My guys have scored more points than the top players at each one of those positions. So if you read my article, there are great options in my article. Just not always the guys I give you on the show because sometimes I take big swings and it doesn't work out. Let's get into the stream of the week. Here we go. I got to get my script up here. Week 17 streams of the week, all available in about 50% of ESPN leagues. I'm going to go with Bryce Young at quarterback. I trust the kid. He is on an 8-game touchdown streak, and over his last 4 games, he's added 3 rushing touchdowns. In those 4 games, he's actually the QB8 in fantasy. And guess what? He finishes the QB8 the last time he faced the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as well. I think it's going to be another top 10 week from a very hot quarterback against a bad defense. On tight end, I'm going to go Chigoziem Okonkwo against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Mason Rudolph loves Chinga Okonkwo. He has 21 targets in their last 2 games. And in those same 2 games, he is the tight end 1 in fantasy. And that's without scoring a touchdown. Jacksonville has allowed 7 tight end touchdowns this season. I think he gets in the end zone. For defense, I'm going to go with the LA Chargers against the New England Patriots. The Chargers are still the defense 7 despite some recent rough patch. The last time they faced a bad offense was Atlanta in week 13, and they were the defense 2 overall that week. New England still allows the 5th most fantasy points to defenses this season, and weather could play a factor, which is great for defense. Those are your week 17 streams of the week. Full article available tomorrow. Go win yourself a championship. Boom.
Bam.
All right, Josh, we got a couple more questions here. Smitty wants to know Darnold or Goff. There is no world where I'm benching Jared Goff right now.
How do you justify benching Sam Darnold right now?
Because I have Jared Goff.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm actually saying this right now. Holy crap.
Yeah, I say it's
honestly. I'm gonna go Darnold because he's at home. That's the only reason I'm gonna do it.
That's fair.
And again, it's not because I don't love like road Jared Goff or anything. I think he's gonna be just fine. This like the Vikings are continually playing for their survival at this point because all they need is one slip up from the Lions and they can grab that division.
I got to be honest, Josh. I did not realize
Jair Alexander keeps missing games.
I did not realize how good Darnold has been. He is only 3 points per game behind Goff since week 11. Goff has obviously had 2 monster games, whereas Darnold has had 1 monster game in that span. So Darnold has been better than I had given him credit for. I've been focusing on the others. And you have to like Darnold's weapons better, plain and simple. So I'm still going to go Goff just because I'm not going to change my answer. So
that's okay. Smitty, I'm sorry you're getting two differing opinions here, but yeah. I'm sticking with the Vikings at home.
The home game narrative makes a lot of sense. Pay attention to San Francisco weather. Make sure they're not going to get any weird wind or water. That would definitely change my answer.
Yeah, and luckily you have until like Sunday afternoon to make this call because the Vikings Packers is at 4:25 Sunday. The Lions play on Monday.
There you go. And then Smitty hits us back with McConkey or Addison. And Josh, I was a little surprised to find New England has actually stepped their game up against wide receivers. And because of how much I like Sam Darnold, I think I'm going to go Jordan Addison in his penchant for finding the end zone.
Yeah, Addison has been an end zone seeker. They use him a lot in the red zone. Even last week, he scored. Didn't do much else outside of that touchdown because Justin Jefferson did Justin Jefferson things. But if you're able to score fantasy points when Justin Jefferson goes off, I want you in my lineup, plain and simple. Because the week that they decide that, you know what, we're going to slow down Justin Jefferson, guess who's the beneficiary? It's Jordan Addison.
Every time.
Yep.
Now I like Jordan Addison a lot this week. Like I said, I was a little shocked to find, Josh, that the Patriots popped up as one of my bottom 5 wide receiver list over the last 5 games. So that's pretty interesting stuff there. All right, guys. Underdog. We actually have a little partnership with Underdog. Let me get that banner up for you guys real quick here. You sign up with promo code WOFF. You get a free pick and a first-time deposit match up to $1,000. Joe and I are slackers. Josh carrying the weight. So, Josh, I'll just let you take over here. What are your picks for Underdog? It looks like these are all Christmas Day picks. So
yeah, it's kind of been the theme. You know, we always do the game, like the Thursday game, but, you know, with Christmas being here, I kind of just focused on one of them, honestly. Steelers and Chiefs game. Xavier Worthy, basically an anytime touchdown prop. This is juiced up 1.4 times. He's been scoring touchdowns, as we talked about on the recap show, 6, 7, 6, 11, and 11 targets over the past 5 weeks. He is doing everything to get more involved in this offense, and the more pieces that the Chiefs have added to draw more attention away to get Xavier Worthy the football. Andy Reid is one of the best schematic offensive coordinators in the history of the NFL. If he wants to get somebody the football, he's going to get it. Xavier Worthy is starting to look like an actual weapon as a receiver, which he wasn't in the early part of the season. I also like Samaje Perine higher than 9.5 receiving yards. This prop seemed so low. So I started digging into it. He has hit this line in 5 straight games.
Interesting.
Even better. He's hit it in 10 of his last 11 games. Oh, wait, you want even better? 12 of his 15 games this season, he has hit 10 or more receiving yards. Why is this prop so low?
Yeah.
This feels like the gimme of all gimme props.
I was going to say, I feel like I need to get in on this one now. So,
and then my next one is Jaylen Warren higher than 35.5 rushing yards.
Yeah.
I actually wanted to take the lower on this initially because when I was going through and I was looking at it, when he plays a really good run defense, they absolutely shut him down. Cincinnati only had 12 rushing yards. Against Philly, I believe he only had 9. Kansas City is allows the 3rd fewest rushing yards on the season as a total defense, right? with Pickens coming back, this is going to open up the field more, which is going to keep some of the linebackers off the line of scrimmage, which is going to open up more opportunities. Jaylen Warren is that more of that scat back, high efficiency type runner, 4 or 5 yards a carry kind of guy. So I think he's able to clear, because this is basically 8 rush attempts for 36 yards.
Yeah.
That's 4 yards carry. He gets this in his sleep. So I think he can very easily hit 35.5.
There we go. So if you guys are looking to get involved in Underdog, make sure you use that promo code WOFF. WOFF. Yes, said that really fast and made sure I got it correct there. We appreciate anything you guys can do to help the show. Josh, we didn't get any questions. Those scampers did chime in with a Captain Planet, Earth, Fire, Wind, Water, Heart. Watch those weather reports, as I was mentioning in the San Francisco game. Exactly, scampers. You knew what I was going for there. Folks, that's going to be the end of the show. It is Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas to each and every one of you. It seems like every one of you is in at least one championship. I hope you guys all win your championships, because I know none of you are facing me, because I am in shit for championships this season. So I hope you guys win every championship. Josh, any parting words for our wonderful viewers? Once again, a very quick reminder, and we'll get to your question here in just a second, Smitty. This is the last time we are on air until 11 a.m. on Saturday morning. 11 a.m. Eastern Saturday morning is Start Sit Different Day, where all we're going to be doing is answering your Start Sit questions. We are still going to have, I was going to say we're going to have articles drop, but that's not really true. I dropped all my Wednesday articles.
Austin did say he was going to do his cash game articles.
So that'll be Saturday, and I am going to drop Stream of the Week as soon as we get off air tonight. So if you go to clubfantasyffl.com, all of our weekly articles minus Austin's DFS article are already going to be on the website tonight. So, Josh, as I wanted to say, parting words for our viewers, and then we'll answer Smitty's question and get out of here.
Yeah, just want to say Merry Christmas to all. I appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in, supporting us throughout this whole entire year. We have doubled in subscriber growth here on YouTube since over the last calendar year, and obviously that's not possible without each and every one of you supporting us and supporting the show, and all of the great content creators that put up with my nonsense here at Club Fantasy. So love each and every one of you all, and thank you so much. Let's ring out 2024 with some fantasy championships, and let's kick off 2025 the Club Fantasy way. So.
Scamper says he got smacked in the listener league. No worse than almost 2 of your hosts being in the toilet bowl. Technically it is. It's me versus Wendy in the toilet bowl.
Oh,
so Club Fantasy did not represent.
Oh, and I wanted real quick. We do have the sneaky flex on Thursday.
Oh, thank you.
We will have that show. Yes, we will have that show on Thursday.
That's right. And Josh, did the girls make the championship against their pop? Did you get any update on that?
The girls are playing their dad in the championship.
That's awesome. All right.
So we may have an appearance from Dave Fantasy.
From Dave. There, yeah, let's see it. All right, Josh. Last question of the show. Roma Dunze, K-Dot, and Travis Etienne in the flex. I'm taking Otten out of this argument immediately. To me, it comes down to a Dunze or Etienne. I think I'm going to lean on Caleb Williams and Roma Dunze here.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm going to go to. I really want to believe in Etienne, but I just said that Tank Bigsby's going to finish top 10, so I think that's going to take Etienne out of the running. So I think you're going to lean with the target volume with Odunze, and just kind of hope that things work out that way. Yeah, I had actually a really good Caleb Williams stat if you want to hear it really quick before we go out. So
I got time.
I found this because I like Caleb Williams as a top 10 guy this week. So from fantasy points, Caleb Williams has 71% of his passing yards when trailing this season, and 52.4% of his passing yards in the second half of games. The fun part, who does he trail in that category? Geno Smith, his opposing quarterback this week.
Interesting. I was going to say, so you need to root for the Seahawks to get out early because Caleb puts in that work. Guys, thank you so much. Merry Christmas. Sneaky flex on Thursday. Starts a different day on Saturday. Have a wonderful night, day, week. And fantasy.
Enjoy your family time.
Yeah, enjoy that time. We'll talk to you guys soon.